There's a pattern showing up in companies right now. Leadership approved a handful of AI tools. Teams started using them. And on paper, everything looks fine. But 6 months later, something strange happens. The tools are there. People are technically using them. Reports show adoption rates climbing. And yet, nothing has really changed. Costs are the same. Timelines are the same. The same bottlenecks exist. In some cases, things actually got worse. More meetings, more confusion about who's responsible for what, more friction between teams that were supposed to be moving faster. So what went wrong? This is not a story about bad tools. It's not about companies being too slow. And it's not about resistance to change. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of what AI actually requires to create value. And almost every company is making the same mistake right now. Most companies believe that using AI means adding AI tools to their current workflows. And it makes sense. You have a process, you identify a slow part, you drop in an AI tool to speed it up. This is how every other technology adoption worked. Email made communication faster. Cloud software made collaboration easier. Project management tools made tracking simpler. You add, you train, you move on. The workflow stays mostly the same. It just runs a little smoother. So naturally, companies assume AI works the same way. Find the friction, add the tool, expect the gain. It sounds reasonable. It is reasonable. Every past experience supports this logic. But it misses something important. Something that only becomes visible after months of trying. AI does not work like other tools. Most software does one thing faster. It automates a specific task within a defined boundary. AI doesn't just do one thing. It shifts what's possible to do at all. And when you add something that shifts possibilities into a workflow that was never designed for those possibilities, you get friction. Not because the AI failed, but because the workflow was built for a different reality. Here's what that looks like in practice. A marketing team uses AI to generate content faster. Before, they produced 3 blog posts per week. Now, they can produce 15. Sounds like a win. But the approval process was designed for 3 pieces per week. The legal review was designed for 3 pieces per week. The publishing schedule was designed for 3 pieces per week. Now there are 15 drafts sitting in a queue, waiting for the same 2 people who always had to approve everything. So the bottleneck moves, it doesn't disappear. It just relocates to the next human in the chain. The AI did its job, but the system couldn't absorb the output, and this happens everywhere. Sales teams generate more leads, but can't follow up fast enough. Customer service responds quicker, but escalations pile up. Product teams prototype faster, but reviews take just as long. The speed increased in one place, but the system wasn't built for that speed. So the pressure just shifts. This creates a strange situation inside companies. Teams feel like they're using AI. Dashboards show adoption. Leadership sees activity. Everyone checks the box. But the outcomes don't match the expectations. The productivity gains that were promised, they're not showing up in the numbers. And when that happens, something predictable follows. Meetings. Why aren't we seeing the results? Is the tool working correctly? Do we need more training? Should we try a different solution? The conversation becomes about the tool, not about the workflow, not about what AI actually requires to create value. And here's where it gets worse. No one owns the outcome. The team using the tool says they're doing their part. They're generating more output than ever before. The manager waiting for approval says they're overwhelmed. They were never staffed for this volume. Leadership says they invested in the right technology. The adoption numbers prove it. Everyone is correct, and nothing improves. This is the trap. When responsibility is distributed across the workflow, but the workflow itself was never redesigned. There's no single point of failure to fix. There's just a system-wide mismatch. And mismatches don't show up in dashboards. They show up in frustration, in delays, in the quiet sense that something isn't working. This is where most companies get stuck. They interpret the lack of results as a tool problem, so they try another tool, or they add more training sessions, or they hire a consultant to optimize the implementation. Some companies scale back entirely. They call it a failed experiment. They move on, but the real issue hasn't been addressed yet, and this creates a second problem, one that most people don't notice until much later. When AI is added without rethinking the workflow, the people using it start to lose trust, not in the technology, in the decision to adopt it. They see the mismatch between the promise and the reality. They feel the friction every single day. The tool was supposed to make their work easier. Instead, it created new problems, new bottlenecks, new confusion about who's supposed to do what. And slowly, they start to tune it out. AI becomes another corporate initiative that didn't land, just like the last software rollout. Just like the process improvement project 2 years ago. Another thing that was supposed to change everything, and changed nothing. This is organizational scar tissue forming, and when the next opportunity comes along, the one that might actually matter, the one that could genuinely transform how the company operates, there's resistance. Not because people are afraid of AI, not because they don't understand it, but because they've already seen how this plays out. They've been through the cycle before. Hype, implementation, disappointment, move on. This is the hidden cost of doing AI wrong. It's not just the wasted licenses. It's not just the unchanged metrics. It's not just the time spent in meetings about tools. It's the organizational fatigue that builds up quietly. The sense that we tried AI and it didn't work, when in reality, it was never given a chance to work because it was dropped into a system that couldn't use it. There's another layer to this that rarely gets discussed. When AI gets added to workflows without clear ownership, decision-making becomes murky. Who is responsible when the AI generates something wrong? Who reviews the output? Who makes the final call? In most companies, these questions were never answered. The tool got added, people started using it, and the assumption was that existing roles would absorb the new responsibilities. But they didn't, because those roles were designed for a different process. So now you have situations where AI-generated work moves through the organization, and no one is quite sure who owns it. Is it the person who prompted the AI? Is it the manager who approved the workflow? Is it the team lead who signed off on using the tool? When things go well, it doesn't matter. When things go wrong, everyone points somewhere else. This ambiguity slows everything down. Not visibly, not in ways that show up in project timelines, but in the small hesitations, the extra checks, the meetings to clarify who should handle what, the overhead that accumulates quietly, until one day someone asks why everything still takes so long, and nobody has a clear answer. The companies getting real value from AI right now aren't the ones with the most tools. They're not the ones with the biggest budgets. They're not the ones with the most aggressive adoption targets. They're the ones asking a different question. Not where can we add AI, but what would we build if we started from scratch? That shift changes everything. Because when you ask where to add AI, you're accepting the current workflow as fixed. You're looking for gaps to fill. When you ask what you'd build from scratch, you're questioning whether the workflow should exist at all. Maybe the approval chain isn't too slow. Maybe it shouldn't exist in its current form. Maybe the bottleneck isn't a problem to solve. Maybe it's a signal that the entire process needs rethinking. This is what separates companies that are genuinely transforming from companies that are just adding tools. The first group is redesigning how work gets done. The second group is optimizing the old way, slightly faster. Both look similar on the surface. Both show AI adoption in their reports. But the outcomes are completely different. One group will emerge with fundamentally more efficient operations. The other will wonder why the investment didn't pay off. AI isn't a feature you bolt on. It's a reason to rethink what the workflow should be in the first place. And the businesses that understand this, they're not moving faster. They're moving differently. That's the gap, and it's growing wider every month.